Yes, sir, it is visible.
Anyways, um, so before, okay, very good. Okay, very good. So be interactive. Now, couple of announcements. So if you visit my website, I'll give you the link. If you visit my website, all the slides that we are covering in the class will be made available to you. And these files are going to be all password protected. And the link to these files, link to the page, the course web page, and also the password that we are going to use to protect the files, those are going to be um, those are going to be made available through Teams. Okay. Students, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so somehow there was a network disruption here, because of which I got disconnected. So are all of you here? Let me just have a quick check. Yeah, I think most of you are here already. Yeah, so that's the bad thing, taking classes from home. Anyways, so let us continue. Yeah, so let me once again share my slide. Can you see my slide? Is the slide visible?
Sir, we can see your screen, not the slide. We can see Teams.
Happened. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir, now it is visible.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we lost few minutes in the process, so let us continue. Yeah, so far till yesterday, what did we see? We have learned how to build small networks, right? Conceptually, right? There is a whole lot to it, but we have not understood all of these, which will happen during the rest of the semester. But what we have learned is that, how to have small networks like local area networks to be built. Even we started with like two computers, how you can make them talk to each other, and then how you can build bigger networks like local area networks, which will be kind of like private to a particular organization, and then how you can have interconnections beyond these local area networks. So basically, wide area networks, a local area network connecting to a wide area network, two wide area networks connecting to each other, and so on and so forth. So we have seen that sort of scenario yesterday. We have also seen, like, how do we form the topologies, the network topologies, right? So different topologies like the mesh networking topology, the star, the this bus topology, the tree topology, the star topology, and so on and so forth. So we have seen all of these different topologies. So these topologies correspond to how you are going to place the network devices in order to geometrically form the network, so that so it's a kind of a geometric kind of problem where you are concerned about how you are going to, how and where you are going to place the different devices, so that they can form a network of their own. So there is a whole lot to this also, the topologies as well. So which I told you that we will cover when we talk about few other different details. So we are going to revisit it during the semester. But let us continue our conceptual design of the network even further. So we are doing it all conceptually. So let us just think about it, right? So we have seen, like, if you have, for example, a a long bus connection, right? And where you have different terminals dropping into the bus, right? So this will basically help the different computers to talk to each other. However, if you have a bigger network, you need some devices which will intelligently be able to route the packets, which will be able to direct the packets to the intended destination nodes. So basically, the moment you start building larger networks, you will have multiple paths linking the different devices, right? And that makes the scenario complex. So if there is a sender device in the network, in such a network, and the sender wants to send some data or message to the receiver node, then this kind of scenario, the one that I just told you, is not going to help. So what you need in such cases is basically the switched network. In a switched network, you have some intelligent devices called the switches, okay, which will be able to direct the packets or the messages in general towards the intended destination node. Okay, so over here we are going to go through the concept of switched network, and this term will be used quite generically. So there are different types of switches, different nature of switches, and so on. So which will become clearer in the in the future lectures. So look at this particular figure over here. So this is a this is a typical representation of a switched network. You have different terminals A, B, C, D, etc., and in between you have a fabric of different switches. So when the information, so let us say that A wants to send some information to D, right? So these switches basically help in directing the packets towards D. So this switch basically knows where it has to send the packet to, whether it is going to send to this one or this one, and so once the packet, let us say, comes to either of these, then this one also knows that whether it has to send to this one or directly to this one. So like that actually. So these switches basically can do better than the non-switched kind of scenario that I narrated a while back. Is this clear? Any question on this? So these switches basically can do better than simply connecting the computers through cables, right? So these switches can help in directing the messages towards the intended destination or the intended host. Let us proceed further. Let us try to understand these switched networks. So these switched networks basically can be classified into different types. One is called the circuit switched network. The second is called the packet switched network. And the third one is called the message switched network. Okay. These packet switched networks are more of interest to us in modern day computer networks. These can be again classified into datagram networks and virtual circuit networks. Okay. So we are going to look through each of these different categories to understand what is in scope for each of these different types of networks. Okay, so one thing I would like to mention over here is that in next week's class, basically, I am going to cover something called the layered architecture for the internet, right? In the layered architecture, you will come to know that there are several layers that each of these devices is going to basically conceptually run, right? So each of these devices in the network is going to conceptually run. So how the communication between the different layers takes place across the different devices in the network is something that I'm going to explain in the next class. So these so every device basically has different layers, right? So the network, conceptually, the network has different layers. So there is something called the physical layer, there is something called the data link layer, there is something called the network layer, there is something called the transport layer, there is something called the application layer, right? So like this, actually, there are different types, different layers, each having its own different function. Okay, and there are different protocols that run in each of these different layers. So between the different devices corresponding to these different layers, there are different communications that take place. So this is something that I'm going to cover in the next week's lecture. So what I wanted to mention over here in this context is that these circuit switched, packet switched, message switched, etc., they basically work in the different layers. They do not all belong to the same layer. Okay, so which one belongs to which layer is something that I will tell you in the rest of the lecture today. So let us first start with the very fundamental one, which is called the circuit switched networks. So pay attention over here. So circuit switching, basically, in this technique, the sender and the receiver, they have a dedicated path that is set up. An unbroken dedicated path is set up. So it is very similar to how the telephone networks work. So for example, when you are calling a particular number, right? So before you want to talk to somebody, right? Like, so let us say that you want to talk to your friend. So before you can start talking to your friend, what do? You call his or her number, and only after the other side, the intended receiver receives your call, says an hello, then only you start conversing further, right? You do not simply dial a number and start speaking, right? You do not do that. So first you will have to establish a connection. Only after the connection is set up, then only you start conversing through the channel. So circuit switching basically uses this particular concept for computer networks. So first a connection has to be established in circuit switching. So then once you have the dedicated path existing between both the ends, you start sending the packets through it, the messages through it, and then the connection is terminated. So you see that any kind of routing decision, how the packets are going to be sent, etc., must be made only at the time of establishment of the circuit. And once the circuit is established, no further routing decisions need to be made about how to send the packets to the intended destination node. So you need to have a complete end-to-end path existing between the two nodes before the communication can take place, and the computer that initiates the data transfer must ask for the connection to the destination first, and only after the connection is established, the destination so first the connection has to be established. So you ask for the connection, then the destination node basically has to acknowledge, right, whether it is willing to accept the call or not. Only after that basically the data transfer takes place. So look at the visual over here. So we have a circuit switched network where you see that between the different switches you have links comprising multiple channels, right? So between switch 1 and switch 2, for instance, you have a single link. However, this link is comprised of several channels. So you have several channels of communication between the switch 1 and switch 2. One link, several channels. Same thing for switches 2 and 3. A dedicated link, but several channels. Same thing here, same thing here. So you see that in circuit switching, what I was telling you is that if computer A wants to send some information to M, first it has to establish this dedicated path to M. Only after that the packet transfer can take place. So that's circuit switching. I hope that it is very clear to all of you. What is the advantage? The advantage is that the communication channel, once it is established, it remains dedicated for further communication. So only there is an overhead at the beginning of the communication, and of course there has to be a tear down at the end. So that is the only overhead. So once it is established, you have a dedicated path. There is no other headache that you will have to take in order to send the packets at different instants of time. However, there are few other disadvantages which are quite obvious. So for establishing a connection, sometimes there could be several seconds of delay. Okay, and during that time basically you cannot transfer the data that you intend to send. So the delay basically at the very beginning is incurred in circuit switching techniques. So circuit switching, as it turns out, compared to its counterparts, is more expensive because you need to first have a dedicated path for each connection. So the communication channel basically is not efficiently utilized because the channel is not used when the connected systems are not using it. So what does it mean? So that means that you establish the channel between two devices, and it is not always the case that continuously these two devices are going to exchange data. So during the time that the data is not being exchanged, the connection still remains established between these two devices, which means that you are essentially underutilizing the resources that are blocked between these two devices. So that leads to underutilization and inefficiencies in the communication network performance. Another alternative is something called the message switching. So in message switching, there is no requirement to establish a dedicated path between two stations first, as in the case of circuit switching. There is no such requirement. So whenever a station sends a message, the destination address is appended to the message. The message is then transmitted to the network. And then each node that receives the message in the route, it stores it in its entirety on the disk. Okay, and here actually we are talking about the secondary memory, right? Not the primary memory of the computer. So whichever computer basically receives it, it is going to store in its, let us say the permanent memory, the secondary memory, and then it transmits the message to the next node. So essentially what is happening over here is that this, initially there is no connection establishment like in the case of circuit switching, well and good. However, the packet, which has the destination address appended to the packet or the message, if you call it as a message in this case. So the message basically has a destination address appended to it. So then it is passed on to the next node basically, and the next node basically what it is going to do, it is going to store the entire message temporarily for a certain duration of time, and then it is going to forward further to the next hop node, right? So this is a store and forward network. So it looks like this, that you see that if you have a network like this, right, and A wants to send some messages to H, essentially it could happen that for the same, same application, different messages would be traversing different paths. So this red colored path is traversed by message 1 belonging to a particular application, whereas message 2 passes along a completely different path. So different messages will be flowing across through different paths of the same network in a message switched technique. Okay. So here in message switching, as I said, that every node which receives a message will have to store it in its secondary memory, secondary storage, and then it can it can store for some time, and then it can forward further. So essentially, every node will be delaying the forwarding of the message for some time. So there will be a time delay that will be introduced, okay, in this mechanism. So this is basically how the message switched network looks like. So advantages: channel efficiency can be better than circuit switched networks because you do not really need to have all the messages pass through the same dedicated path. So which basically enables the different other pairs of nodes that want to communicate to share the path, right? But there are few other disadvantages that are going to be incurred. There are many other advantages, but there are few other disadvantages that are going to be incurred. So if we are talking about interactive applications, right? So message switching concept, where the different messages will be traversing different paths, they will be incurring different delays. So this sort of thing, if you are talking about like interactive applications cannot basically work on message switching concept, right? For obvious reasons. The second thing is that every computer that receives the message basically stores it for some time, right? So that makes it expensive, because you need lots of disk space basically to store different messages, right? So long messages are going to be stored for longer duration of time and using a lot of resources of these intermediate nodes that receive the messages. Okay, there is a third alternative which is called packet switching. So circuit switching, dedicated path; message switching, no dedicated path, different messages flowing across through different paths between the sender and the destination nodes. The packet switching basically comes as a solution that combines the advantages of the message switching on one hand and circuit switching on the other, and it basically minimizes the disadvantages of both the message and the circuit switching. So here basically in packet switching, the packets are switched. So what are these packets? These packets are like fixed length messages, fixed length, short, small messages, right? So let us try to understand how these small, short messages are going to flow across. So here actually, as you can see over here, this is a packet switched network where there are small messages like this, which all take different paths, as in the case of message switching. But the difference over here is that these are fixed length packets, these are fixed length messages, right? So these are small chunks, and these small chunks can be stored in the primary memory. Okay, these do not really need to be stored in the disks, right? And you can do it, beforehand how long is each chunk, beforehand how long is each chunk. So you can basically plan the storage requirements, the primary storage requirements of these intermediate nodes accordingly. So here basically you have two different approaches. One is called the datagram approach, the other one is called the virtual circuit approach. Okay, so let us look at the datagram and the virtual circuit approaches shortly. So let us, before doing that, let us try to understand a little bit further. So here actually the message, as I was telling you, is broken into small chunks which are called as the packets. So each packet is basically tagged with appropriate source and destination messages. Since the packets have a strictly defined maximum length, they can be stored in the main memory instead of the disk, which I was telling you earlier. So thereby basically you can minimize the access delay and minimize the cost that is involved in terms of storage, right? Also the transmission speed between the nodes will be optimized, right? So these are some of these different features of the packet switching approach. Now in packet switching, as I was telling you, that there are two different approaches in packet switching. One is called the datagram approach, the other one is called let us first try to look through. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Am I audible?
Sir, you are audible.
Am I audible? Hello? Someone please confirm.
Sir, you're audible.
Okay, very good. Yeah, okay, thank you for the confirmation. So let me just go back to okay. So I was talking about like this datagram approach, and there are two approaches in packet switching. One is called the datagram approach, the other one is called the virtual circuit approach. Let us first look at the datagram approach. Right. So in datagram approach is very similar to message switching, right? Very similar. However, here in datagram, each packet is a self-contained unit with complete addressing information. So this basically allows these packets to take a variety of possible paths to the network, which is fine, right? Which is fine, right? So this, because they have their own self-contained, they are self-contained and they have their own address information, they can all take different paths to the network. So even if the different packets have the same destination address, they do not follow the same route, and consequently what is going to happen is these packets, these datagrams are going to arrive out of sequence at the intended destination node. So these different packets, these small chunks, they are all going to arrive at the destination node, in different sequence from the way the sequence in which they were sent. So obviously, if you have to make sense out of the messages that that are received, you have to reorder the messages, the packets, you have to reorder the packets, right? So that has to be done by the destination node. And how it will be done? It will be done based on a sequence number that is attached to the packets. So initially, when these different packets are sent at the source node, a particular sequence number is attached to the individual packet. So even if they traverse like different paths, the destination node can basically sequence them back to their original using the sequence number that is attached to them. So it is possible for a packet to be destroyed if one of the nodes on its way is crashed momentarily, right? So thus all its queued packets may be lost in the process, but it doesn't matter, because so here actually there are actually different ways in which you can detect like whether a particular packet is lost or not, and then how to recover, right? So there are certain mechanisms which we will learn later on. So now let us look at this diagrammatically, right? So this is how the datagram network basically looks like. So let us say that the source node A wants to send messages to X, right? And so you see that this becomes your datagram network. This becomes your datagram network with different switches in between. So these packets, they come in certain sequence like 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the different sequence numbers of these different packets. So these packets, they all go through different paths, right? Each has its own different address, and at the intended destination node, you see that they arrive out of sequence. So here it was 1, 2, 3, 4. Here it is 1, 4, 3, 2. That's the sequence in which they arrive, right? Now at the intermediate nodes, these intermediate switches, what happens, right? If you look at the table which has the information, which is called the routing table, right? So this routing table basically, so in this routing table, if you look at it looks like something like this, right? So the routing table has the destination address and the output port, right? So basically, if the message has to be sent to a particular address, the routing table tells that send the packet through port 1. If the destination address is something different, it will tell you to which port it has to be sent through. So like this, actually, the routing table for all the nodes in the network, it will tell you like, so which port it has to be sent. Now the question is that how do you know? How does the routing table know, like, that this is the port through which it has to be sent, etc. So this basically is done through the process of routing, which you will come to know later on, right? So so this routing table, how to build the routing table, how the routing table is formed, This is something that you will come to know later on. Okay. So for now, this is basically the concept of datagram switching. Now I am skipping this part, but I will let you go through it. So so basically there is a delay, right? So every node basically delays the packet for certain duration of time, which basically adds to the overall delay. The total delay basically, as you can see, right? So the total delay in a datagram network is this much. So these are like timeline diagrams, right? So if you have taken a software engineering course before, which all of you have, the sequence diagrams, right? So this pretty much looks like a sequence diagram. So you see that so the total delay, this is quite visually understandable. The total delay that is incurred by a particular packet is this much. Okay. So I will let you read it. Not everything I'm going to spoon feed on you. So let us now quickly go to the virtual circuit packet switching approach, right? So here in the virtual circuit approach, you need to, it's here actually, it's little interesting, right? So in the datagram approach is akin to the message switching approach. The only difference was that in the datagram approach, you have small chunks, and these small packets that arrive at the intermediate nodes, they are stored temporarily, for a very short duration of time in the primary memory, right? Whereas in the message switching, it used to be like everything used to be stored in the secondary disk, right? So here in virtual circuit switching approach, it is little different, right? So here actually first it adopts the approach that is adopted by this thing by the circuit switching approach, right? So in the circuit switching approach, what did we do? We basically established the connection first. So here also we are going to do that. So first we have to plan the route. So in a virtual circuit switching approach, a pre-planned route is established before any data packets are sent. So exactly like the way we did in the circuit switching approach. So once that connection is established, a sender then can send a call request packet to the receiver, and the receiver sends back an acknowledgement packet called the call accepted packet to the sender. So there are certain conversational parameters that have to be agreed between the receiver and the sender, and these conversational parameters can be something like the maximum packet size, the path to be taken, and other variables necessary to establish and maintain the conversation. Okay. So so in virtual circuits, basically you need acknowledgements, you need flow control, you need error control, so that the virtual circuits can become reliable. And indeed, this is the advantage over the datagram circuit switching approach, because here actually, so you are controlling the flow in the virtual circuit switching approach. You are controlling the flow, you are controlling the error, etc. So that can get in, and so on. So what are these error control, flow control? Again, this is something for a future class, right? So so I'm going to skip this, and let me just conceptually show you side by side what is the difference between this datagram approach and virtual circuit switching approach. So this particular figure actually I have taken from Stallings, not from Pharouzan. So please try to understand this. So I forgot to give the credit over here. So anyway, so this I am going to change later on, but try to understand this part, right? So you see that in datagram approach, what is happening? 1, 2, 3. So each of these different chunks, these small packets, they are traversing different paths, and they arrive at the intended destination node. So here actually it's a simplistic scenario that is shown, where the sequence in which these packets are sent is exactly the sequence in which they are all received. This is fine, right? But it may not happen. This may not happen. So the sequencing will have to be done with the help of the sequence number in the datagram approach. However, in the virtual circuit approach, you see the first the dedicated connection to the intended destination node has to be established, which was not the case with the datagram approach. So this is the dedicated part, that one in the dashed line, so this shows the dedicated path, and then only after it is established, the packets are sent through that particular path, right? So how is it done? So the question is that how is it done? How these packets, so how they are going to be sent through these intermediate nodes. So, so for this, we need to understand something called the virtual circuit identifier. We need to understand that there is a concept of virtual circuit identifier. So these virtual circuits, basically, once again, they offer guarantees that the packets sent in this particular sequence will arrive at the intended destination node in the order, in that same sequence in which they are sent. And there won't be any duplications of the packets, there won't be any omissions of the packets, and there won't be any errors with high probability. Of course, you cannot always guarantee error freeness. So there won't be any errors regardless of how they are implemented internally. So in virtual circuit approach, there are two different addresses that are used. One is called the global address and the other one is called the virtual circuit identifier. Virtual circuit identifier, VCI, right? This is actually, this should be VCI, okay? So anyway, so the global address is this in the virtual circuit networks is used only to create the virtual circuit identifier, right? So global address will help in the creation of the VCI, and this VCI is used in order to actually transfer the data in each of these intermediate nodes, right? How it is done, let us try to understand. So there are three phases. One is the setup phase, the second is the data transfer phase, and the third is the tear down phase. So setup phase, data transfer phase, and the tear down phase. So let us try to understand each of these different phases. So first, the setup phase. So in the setup phase, let us say that we are looking at one of these switches. Let us say that we are looking at one of these switches. So you see that in the setup phase, basically the switch creates an entry for a virtual circuit in that routing table. Okay. So for example, suppose source A needs to create a virtual circuit to B. Source A needs to create some virtual circuit to B, right? So there are two steps that are required, the setup request and the acknowledgement. Okay. So we will understand this shortly. I'll just quickly be back in a minute. Okay. So just give me a moment. Yeah, I'm back. So let me once again put it in the full screen mode. Yeah, so how does the setup work, right? So for this, so we need to understand how it works. So before this, so let us first try to look at each of these different switches. So every switch has some designated ports. So let us say that for this particular switch we have these 3 ports, 1, 2, and 3, right? And so these packets keep coming, right? So the packets keep coming. Where is it here? So the packets keep coming, and these these routing tables basically, and these tables that are stored with the different information. This basically gets populated, right? So this gets populated, right? So you have, so what does it have? So every switch basically has 2 parts. One is the incoming, the other one is the outgoing. For incoming, you have again the port number and the VCI. For the outgoing also, you have the port number and the VCI. Is it clear? So what is this VCI? This is the virtual circuit identifier, which I told you earlier. So this virtual circuit identifier gets created through this global addressing mechanism. So now, so this is how basically the routing table in each of these switches look like, right? So you see that if you look at the first packet that comes in, right? It came through interface 1, the port 1, and it has a VCI of 14. So you see that incoming gets populated. So port 1 VCI 14. So then it has to be sent to through certain port, right? So here as it is specified over here, so this particular packet, it is going to be sent through port 3. It is going to be sent through port 3, and then the VCI corresponding to it is going to be mentioned over here. So this particular packet, 14, basically the VCI initially for the incoming one was 14, which got changed to 22, right? So this is basically the way things work. Here for the 77, the VCI got changed to outgoing, the VCI got changed to 41, right? So let us look a little further. So how does this setup actually work? So initially the setup request is sent. This is, let us say that this is the setup request, right? So the switch 1, basically the switch 1, it gets populated in this manner, right? So it gets populated in this manner, and then so same thing happens for the switch 2, right? So here if you can notice, for the outgoing, the VCI is not it is not set, right? The VCI is not set, right? The same thing happens for the intermediate nodes. Now that setup request finally arrives at the destination B, and then destination B basically, then it assigns a VCI number, a particular VCI number, which is the 77 in this case, right? So then what will happen? The acknowledgement is going to flow backwards. Acknowledgement is going to flow backwards like this. The acknowledgement comes. So VCI B sets the VCI to 77. So now you see that empty space, the empty space in this particular switch corresponding to port 3, that gets populated over here, right? So 77 comes over here. Now that particular acknowledgement flows back further down, and so here actually so you see that the for the acknowledgement, the 77 VCI gets changed to 22, right? The VCI becomes 22 for the same packet, right? For the same packet. So now with this 22, it is going to come over here. So now this one also gets populated. So this is 22, and finally that packet is going to be, the acknowledgement is going to be sent further. It comes to switch 1 with the VCI 66. So this one also gets populated with 66, and finally this packet is delivered to this node A, and the VCI for this one is 14, right? So this is the VCI. So like this actually. So what essentially what did it what happened? Did you notice this? So you see through this setup and acknowledgement process, a global path got set up between a pair of nodes. So between the pair of nodes A and B, through the exchange of these VCIs, a dedicated path gets set up. Understood this? So now let us see that how the transfer will take place, the data transfer, actual data transfer. So now between A and B, the dedicated path has already been established with the help of these VCI, and the corresponding switches, the intermediate switches, got their routing tables populated with the corresponding VCI. Right. So now basically each of these switches, now you see that every switch has its own routing table in this manner with these VCIs populated, port and the VCIs populated through the. So how did it happen? How did the how it got populated? Through the setup acknowledgement phase, right? Through the initial setup acknowledgement phase. So now this is very simple. So let us say that a packet comes like this, which has a VCI of 14, right? So this switch basically looks into its routing table. It knows that this VCI 14 port 1 will be going out through VCI 66 port 3. So port 3 with VCI 66 basically. You should read like this. So the packet that comes in through port 1 having VCI 14 has to go out. By looking into the routing table, it sees that it has to go out through port 3 with VCI 66, right? Because it is intended towards destination B. If it was intended for some other destination node, the VCI would have been different and the port number would have been different, right? Could have been. Let me tell that could have been, because some part of the the entire path could be using the same segment, right? So this VCI could have been different. The port could have been different, right? So it simply looks up into the routing table and it decides like through which port it is going to send and what will be the VCI. So now this packet, you see the same packet, the data part and the VCI number, so the VCI number gets changed once it passes this particular switch. Then it comes to another switch, the exact same process is repeated. Finally, it comes to the last switch, the same process is repeated and the message gets delivered to B with the VCI 77. Right? So finally, the data is transferred and you need to really tear down the connection that was initially made. The call that was established will have to be broken now. Okay. So for this, basically, you need to take help of something called a special type of frame, which is called the tear down request frame. Okay. So this is easier. Okay. So tearing down is easier. It's simply that the resources will have to be released in the tear down process. So destination B responds with a tear down confirmation frame. So initially the source has to send this tear down request to B, right? Destination B basically responds with a confirmation of the tear down, and all switches basically delete the corresponding entries from their tables. This is basically the freeing up of the resources, right? So all the intermediate switches are going to, once they receive the confirmation from B, basically all the switches in between, they are going to delete the corresponding entry from their tables. So what is the delay that is incurred in the virtual circuit approach? So this is the total delay. This is the total delay. You see from A to B passing through two intermediate switches. There is a setup request delay, right? So setup phase, tear down phase, they have their own delays. Plus, there is a delay that is incurred in the intermediate nodes, right? Because they store the packet briefly, right? So what you have to account for that particular time as well. So from the point the message is from the point the setup is established, setup connection is established or initiated to the completion of the tear down phase, this is the complete delay that will be incurred. So packet switching basically has a lot of advantages. It is cost effective because switching devices do not need massive amount of secondary storage. Packet switching offers improved delay characteristics because there are no long messages in the queue. Packets can be rerouted if there is any problem in between. Okay, so some link is disabled, or some node is broken, or some node is busy for some reason or whatever. So the advantage of packet switching is that many network users can share the same channel at the same time. So that basically improves the overall resource efficiency, overall utilization of the resources, the efficiency of the utilization of the resources gets improved through packet switching approach. There are some disadvantages too. Protocols for packet switching are typically more complex. It can add some initial costs in implementation, right? So much of logic is there, right? So you need to implement those. So for implementation, basically, there will be some cost that will be involved in all of different types, costs of all different types, right? So will be involved. So if the packet is lost, the sender needs to retransmit the data. Another disadvantage is that the packet switched systems can't deliver the same quality as dedicated circuits in applications requiring very little delay. So you see that if you are talking about like real-time applications which are interactive, etc., you really need to have a complete dedicated path, right? So for that, basically circuit switching based approaches, those are more beneficial, right? So these are some of these different disadvantages of the packet switching approach. So I have also given a couple of more slides for you to go through, but I'm not going to go through them myself. So these are actually taken from Stallings again, and this is given to you for you to really convince yourself about it. Any questions so far? Anyone having any question? Students, are you all attentive? I hope that nobody is doing something else parallelly while being logged on to this particular course. Acha. So कौन बताएगा? Let me now ask questions. Okay, so very quick questions. Orpit Das. Orpit, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Orpit, you tell me that what is the disadvantage of circuit switching approach?
Sir, it takes time. It can take time to establish.
Establish what? Very good, but establish what? Can you
establish the path between the
path, the connection, right? So initially,
yes.
Path, the connection establishment takes time. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Orpit. Now, next question I will ask to Esha. Esha?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the question to you is that what is a virtual circuit identifier?
And it tells you which port to send the data into for a specific data packet.
Not really. Anyone else? You gave a good attempt. This is okay, but you are not quite there yet, right? Anybody else? What is a VCI? Who can tell? Srijan?
Yes, sir.
What is VCI?
So it is a sort of address which is appended to the packet for data transfer in virtual circuit network.
Very good, very good. It's an address. So what is this address doing? So this is not like normal kind of address, right? I mean, it's a normal address, but the thing is that it has a specific purpose, right? So it has a specific purpose. What is it? What is the purpose? Who can tell? GT Bhuvan? Jiti Bhuvan, can you tell? So Jiti Bhuvan is not listening to me. Now let me ask Bhushan Ram. Bhushan Ram. Okay, so excuse me if so because I might be mixing the first name, last name, etc. So I'm just asking in the order it appears in the this thing. So it may not be the way you call yourself, but I'm just trying to use the first one or two names that appears on Teams over here. Okay, so Bhushan Ram, sleep mode. Bhushan Ram is in sleep mode, huh? Now not responding. So in networks, actually, you will come to know there is, these nodes going to the sleep mode, right? So Bhushan Ram is doing networks very well. Acha, Debanjan, tell.
Yes, sir. So I think like the port is used for like acknowledgement, something like that. Like you said, when you are sending packets, so like the receiver node is acknowledging that okay, it is receiving something and it is transmitting back.
Yes. So essentially what is happening, you see the emulation of the circuit switching approach kind of thing happens over here, right? Because this through this VCI, the exchange of the VCI, etc., right, during the setup phase, you are kind of establishing a dedicated path between the source and the destination, right? So very good. Okay, so now I have a lot more to cover. Already I'm about 1.5 hours delayed uh, beyond what I had planned. So let us do one thing. So all of you might also be tired. So let us take a quick break of 2 minutes. 2 minutes should be okay, right? So let us take a quick break and let us reassemble here again. Okay, take a quick break. Thank you. Nidhi,
Yes, sir.
so I think because we are starting a new lecture now, let us stop this recording and start a new one. Okay.
Okay.
So students, all of you are back. I
Yes,
am
sir.
assuming that everybody is, because there is no other way to